Okay, miracles. A few preliminary remarks about miracles. You can't talk about miracles without talking about Hume. So Hume has this principle: the probability that the testimony of a miraculous event is unreliable is vastly greater than the probability that the event itself was actually miraculous. So that's his main principle, which makes three mistakes. It assumes miracles are intrinsically improbable, but they're not if God exists. Doesn't factor in all the relevant probabilities. And it underestimates the cumulative evidential power of multiple independent testimonies. And so just to illustrate this last one real quick, okay, the odds that two independent witnesses who are both 99% reliable testifying to other things, the odds of them testifying falsely is 1 in 10,000. Okay, 3 such witnesses is 1 in a million, and 6 such witnesses is 1 in a trillion. Okay, so let's not assume that they're 99% reliable. Let's just assume that they're just as reliable as not. You'd need more witnesses in that case, but you can still get a very powerful confirmation of an event with witnesses that are not 100% reliable. Okay, so we have a generic argument from miracles. The structure would look like this. And miracles are hard because there aren't really a bunch of individually structured arguments. It's just that we plug in different purported miracles for E to get the miracle, to get the argument from miracles. So you'd have to look at the individual miracles themselves to see whether or not there's good evidence that they occurred. We have Tryon Goldschmidt's argument that the Exodus event, we have good reason to think that the Exodus event occurred. I believe he was on your channel. Is that right?
Yeah, he was talking about that. Yeah, it was great. It was really cool.
So look at his interview if you want to get the fuller sense of his argument here. There displayed is his Kuzari principle. And the argument would go, look, the Kuzari principle is true. If the Exodus is a tradition that meets the criteria of the Kuzari principle, then it's likely true. It does meet the criteria, so the Exodus tradition is probably true, which obviously includes all the miraculous events that happened. Other candidates for E would be the miraculous events, the purported miraculous events that happened throughout the New Testament and the ministry of Jesus. We will not camp out on those, but there's some resources on the reliability of the Old Testament, in particular the Exodus narrative.
Yeah, Kitchens is also really good on the reliability of the Old Testament.
Okay, so you can plug any of the things that Jesus did into the generic argument for miracles we gave, and provided that the New Testament is generally reliable, you have a good argument for miracles. And of course, you can't talk about the argument for miracles without mentioning the resurrection, where we have historical evidence. These are all individual pieces of historical evidence, E1 through En, however many pieces of evidence you want to factor into the argument. And so we could run an argument for miracles in 3 ways. We could have a C-inductive argument, given the evidence, whether or not they make the resurrection hypothesis greater than 0.5, they at least confirm it. They at least make it more likely than not, or they make the evidence makes the resurrection hypothesis more likely than not. P-inductive, we have all the evidence. Given all the evidence, the probability that the resurrection occurred is greater than 0.5. And Swinburne at the end of his book on the resurrection, he actually calculates the probability of the resurrection at being, I think, 0.97. So it's almost certain.
Yeah.
And then we have the best explanation. Given the historical facts concerning the resurrection hypothesis is the best explanation. But the resurrection hypothesis entails God exists, so God exists. Contemporary candidates for miraculous events would be...
Is that the slide that we're on right now?
No, that's the next one.
Oh, okay. Or
Yes.
this
Go.
looks. Oh yeah, sorry. This is the resources for that one. Okay, here we
I'm
go.
going.
Sorry
I'm
about
going
that.
faster than you.
You are. This is good.
Okay, contemporary candidates for E would be things like acts of providence, answered prayer, healing, stigmata, public object miracles, by which I just mean, people report like seeing a statue of Mary weep blood, uh, levitation, demonic possession activity, exorcisms, angelic encounters, special divine knowledge, visions, dreams, premonitions, prophecy. Okay, all of these things. Now, I don't want to look at any one of these cases, but I do. Well, let me just mention one that I found pretty funny. In Craig Keener's 2-volume work on miracles, he talks about a healing of a paraplegic woman, and so she couldn't walk, and she couldn't walk for many years. And after the healing, she was investigated for over a year for insurance fraud. uh, and actually, they couldn't find anything. They couldn't find anything on her to charge her with insurance fraud, which is probably another miracle on top of the initial miracle if you think about it. But I thought that example was pretty funny.
Wow.
Um, he has this. He has a very nice quote that kind of gives a sense to. And if you get a chance to look at Keener's book, it is incredible. All the stories and testimony he gives to miraculous events in this book is just overwhelming. He says this: I recognize that some genuine scholars will demur from my argument that some cases of supernatural causation are likely, as I myself did once. What I do not believe is intellectually legitimate is to simply dismiss on the basis of pre-existing assumptions the sincerity of all the hundreds of millions of persons who claim to have witnessed such phenomena, or to insist that such claims could only arise gradually in legend or through a writer's imagination. Such insistence flies in the face of an extraordinary amount of evidence, denying voluminous and cross-cultural testimony merely on the basis of a dogmatic theory forged in a very different era and context. He's thinking of Hume. In view of even the very limited number of cases I have offered, he says very limited, but I'll show you the volumes in a minute, I would consider such sweeping claims to be impossibly naive and misinformed. Any finite number of first-hand observations may be technically anecdotal, but the witnesses are surely no more biased for believing that they have seen apparently miraculous things than those who, not having seen them, deny that anyone else could have seen them either. Okay, so I want to show you his volumes here. I think cumulatively it's over 1,000 pages of just story after story after story of contemporary miracle claims across the world, in the West, in the East, and some of them are evidentially sourced better than others, but it makes a pretty powerful case.
Yeah, I've got
Okay,
those too.
yeah,
They're amazing. I actually
okay,
was looking in those at one point, looking for accounts of amputees being healed, and there was, I think he mentions two.
hmm. We have arguments from. You should try to get Keener on. I think he'd be a great guest.
Great idea. That's awesome.
Fulfilled prophecy is miracle. I won't read the Mackey quote, but the criteria for prophecy is drawn from his quote. An event foretold at T1 occurs at T2 that could not have been predicted by natural means, could not have been brought about because it was foretold, is highly unlikely to have occurred as foretold by chance, then it's fulfilled prophecy. So we could have 3 different kinds of arguments you could run there based on fulfilled prophecy. One for the conclusion that there's good evidence for fulfilled prophecy, so that's good evidence for divine action. You could argue specifically for Christianity by saying if the sacred texts of a religion contain many fulfilled prophecies, that's strong evidence for the truth of that religion. Well, the texts of Christianity do contain many fulfilled prophecies, so that's strong evidence for the truth of Christianity. And obviously, that's going to hang on these fulfilled prophecies. And let's not get into any of the examples. They're interesting, but just look at the resources I list for the examples. Second way of doing it would be Look, if the central claims of a religion are supported by fulfilled prophecy, that's powerful evidence for the truth of that religion. The central claims of Christianity are supported by fulfilled prophecy, so that's powerful evidence for the truth of Christianity. And the main examples here would be the messianic prophecies of the Psalms and of Isaiah 53, which, if you read those, it's it's pretty stunning. If given that it's indisputable that those were written prior to the life and times of Christ, that there should be so many examples that seem fulfilled in the life and time of Christ. Actually, Lydia McGrew has a paper where she looks at these examples, and she calculates that where M is the hypothesis that Jesus is the Messiah, given all of the evidence from Psalm 22 and Isaiah 53, the cumulative Bayes factor for all these evidences is 2.5 times 10 to the 7th power in favor of the hypothesis that Jesus was the Messiah, against the denial of the hypothesis. In other words, the evidence confirms M over not M by a factor of 25 million. Okay, that's what her argument is.